Okay, so we'll get started. Thank you everyone for joining our webinar today, Right for Wings and Water. My name is Cynthia. I am the Social Media Committee co-chair of Rewild Long Island. If you don't know who Rewild is, we are a nonprofit based in Long Island, New York that promotes sustainable landscaping to build climate resilience and grow biodiversity in Long Island, but also promote the fight against biodiversity loss internationally as well. And we hold many events like this one, like the light pollution webinar that's coming up on December 10th. Same time if you're interested. And also we hold in-person events like our weekly composting event at Montauk Community Garden. So if you're interested in hands-on work, definitely feel free to join. And I would like to now hand over it to Lyla. So Lyla, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi guys, I'm Lyla. I am the founder and president of Generation Green, and we are a youth organization that works to empower youth to drive environmental action through education, public speaking, and education. So I'm happy you guys are all here. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, thank you, Lyla. So just heading over to our webinar agenda. So we have 6 parts of this webinar that we're going to cover today. First is the Monarch Decline, where I'll talk about the importance of monarch butterflies, why they're declining, and what we can do about it. And also I'm going to briefly talk about how you can get involved in Monarchs Matter, which is a nonprofit that I started this year to protect the vulnerable monarch population. And then Lyla is going to speak about Long Island water quality, and which also applies to many other areas around the world. And also after that, Lyla is going to cover how to write a letter to local representatives to advocate for environmental policies. And after we get over the presentation section, we're going to have a Q&A, and after that, we will start brainstorming our letter ideas, maybe jot down like a representative you would like to email, what issue you're going to advocate for, and then finally we'll do like a short discussion about what you came up with. And you don't need to unmute and speak. You can also put in the chat just to exchange ideas and inspire each other. Okay, so now I'm going to get started with the monarch decline. So many of you probably know monarch butterflies by their iconic orange and black veined wings, but they're also really important for our ecosystem and environment. They're a vital pollinator for wildflowers in our food. So many of us think when we think of pollinators, we think of bees, but butterflies are also really crucial for the pollination process, as some like long tubular flowers, bees can't pollinate because they can't reach into the nectar at the base of those longer flowers, while butterflies like monarchs have a straw-like tongue called a proboscis, and that lets them drink the nectar from the base of longer tubular flowers and also pollinate them as well in the process. And monarchs and other butterflies could also see red wavelengths of light, while bees and many other pollinators can't. So monarchs are more attracted to red or pink flowers that might not be pollinated otherwise by bees or other insects. And monarch butterflies, even though they're poisonous from eating milkweed, because milkweed has like a white milk or sap inside that has toxins, but the monarch caterpillars could tolerate that, and that makes them poisonous to predators, but they're still a food source for a variety of birds, insects, and small mammals. And last but not least, they're really significant in cultures like Mexican culture, and here I have the Day of the Dead, where many people in Mexico celebrate monarch butterflies because it's a time where the monarch butterflies migrate back to Mexico to hibernate during the winter. And also, they're definitely significant in our lives. We see them in our gardens, in where they're native all across Canada, US, and Mexico. So it's I'm pretty sure all of us appreciate monarch butterflies a lot, and we want to make sure that future generations could also see them and appreciate them as well. So going into the monarch decline, monarch butterflies have declined by over 80% in the last 30 years, according to the Monarch Watch tagging program and the data that they collected from that, which you could also contribute to, which I'm going to talk about a bit later. Um, they've they've found that monarch butterflies have declined by 95% since 1996, from 18 hectares to less than 1 hectare this year. And unfortunately, this year has been the second lowest overwintering population on record. So now this December, IUCN, which is the international organization that determines the status of different species, are going to reassess whether monarch butterflies are going to stay in a vulnerable category or they're going to be categorized as endangered instead. And on this graph, you might be wondering why the y-axis over here is in hectares and not like the butterfly population. So scientists measure or estimate the monarch population using hectares since monarch butterflies are so small, so it's hard to count the individual ones. So instead, they count the total area occupied by monarch colonies during the winter in Mexico, where they hibernate in the oil mill fir forests. So here, hectares is like the area of oil mill fir forests in Mexico that are covered by monarch colonies. And obviously, this decline isn't natural, it's completely caused by humans. So these are the three major causes that have been contributing to the decline. First is deforestation, specifically deforestation of the oil mill fir forests where monarch butterflies hibernate in, as you can see in this photo. And in fact, there's so many monarch butterflies that if you look at an aerial image of the oil mill fir forest, you could see that there's like a bunch of orange on top of the green oil mill fir forest, which is actually the monarch butterflies. And monarch butterflies depend on oil mill fir forests for like a microclimate to protect them against the rain, snow, and cold during the winter. So deforestation of the oil mill fir forest just eliminates the protection that they need to survive the winter. And second is pesticides and herbicides. Even though pesticides and herbicides are aimed towards eliminating pests and weeds that we don't want, it often also harms our native plants and pollinators like monarch butterflies. Here in this photo, from Beyond Pesticides, it shows, from Beyond Pesticides, it shows that monarch butterflies, there has been a mass mortality event a few years ago due to mosquito spraying in the US, which led to a mass mortality event of monarch butterflies as shown in the photo. And the third cause is climate change. So climate change causes extreme weather, which increases severe snowfall and increases temperatures, which disrupt the hibernation, migration, and reproduction of monarch butterflies as they rely on temperature cues to know when to migrate to and from Mexico to the US. And Also, studies have shown that greater rainfall caused by climate change causes monarch butterflies to lay less eggs as well. Okay, so on to the solution. So what you can do to help monarch butterflies. First is growing milkweed, which is probably the easiest and most effective solution because milkweed is the exclusive host plant of monarch butterflies, meaning that monarchs only lay their eggs on milkweed, and monarch caterpillars only consume milkweed as a food source. So you could see why it's really important to plant milkweed to sustain the monarch population. And second, like all native plants, milkweed sequesters atmospheric carbon into their roots, stems, leaves, and soil, which helps mitigate climate change. And lastly, even though milkweed is often associated with monarchs because monarchs exclusively consume it and lay eggs on it, it also supports many other native species. As you can see in this photo, there's a milkweed beetle, and we also often see ladybugs and ants and other beetles on the milkweed as well. And if you're not sure where to start, like how you can buy milkweed, here are a few resources. So first is Rewild's native plant sale. It's semi-annual, so Rewild holds 2 native plant sales per year, one during the spring and one during the fall. So next spring, you could visit Rewild's site, and they'll definitely be selling a lot of milkweed um, for you to plant in your yard and support monarch butterflies. In fact, it's a pretty popular plant during our plant sale, and it's often one of the first plants to sell out. So be sure to get your milkweed so you can support monarchs in your yard. And next, I have this um, milkweed vendors near you. It's from Monarch Joint Venture, and I can, I will post the slides on Rewild's blog and also Monarchs Matters website, and also we'll post a recording to the YouTube video. So in the description, I'll link this slideshow if you want to revisit these links. But the milkweed vendor map is just from Monarch Joint Venture, so you could search up Monarch Joint Venture milkweed vendor map and it'll show up like as the first link. And you could visit that map to see where you could buy milkweed near you. And third is New Moon Nursery, which is where we bought our milkweed for our Raise, Tag, and Release summer program, which we distributed to students so they could plant milkweed in their yards. And if you want to know how that's going, you could visit our blog at monarchsmatter.net/blog. And we have a lot of other resources and information there too. Second solution is contributing to monarch monitoring research. So there are 2 community science projects that I'm going to cover. First is the monarch larva monitoring project here, and the next slide will be the monarch watch tagging program. So the monarch larva monitoring project, or MLMP, is a community science project where anyone can collect observation data from milkweed sites, which includes the number of milkweed species, the number of milkweed plants, how many monarch eggs, caterpillars, chrysalises, and adult butterflies that you found. And all of this data helps scientists conduct research about monarch butterflies and like inform more effective conservation strategies. And here I attached the Monarch Larva Monitoring Project survey, which is what it'll look like when you fill in the data and submit it. And the second community science project is the Monarch Watch tagging program. So You could tag wild or raised monarchs. Here are two monarchs that we raised over the summer. And when you tag these monarchs, the tag has a unique code that so this code you record onto a data sheet along with other information like when it was tagged, where it was tagged, and whether the monarch is male or female, and other information that you submit online to Monarch Watch, and scientists will use the Monarch Watch database to conduct research as well, similar to MLMP. And I I attached this map, which was also shown before, and this map is from Monarch Watch, and they were able to generate this map due to their Monarch Watch tagging data. So um, definitely consider tagging monarch butterflies if you see many of them in their garden or if you raise them, because it could contribute greatly to scientists' research since they need more current data and also widespread data across the US to um, do more effective research for monarch conservation. So now we're going to cover the monarch life cycle, since if you want to raise monarch butterflies, you can get a rough idea of what that's like before you tag them. So first, you can find eggs in the wild. Milkweed leaves, they're usually at the top of the milkweed plant since the leaves are more tender there, and also at the bottom of the leaves, so they're protected from rain and like harsh sunlight. And here is a close-up of the egg. To identify the egg, it's more of a elongated oval shape with a slightly pointed top and also vertical ridges. And they're also yellowish white in color. And then after 3 to 4 days, the caterpillar will hatch and go through 5 instar stages, which I'll cover in the next slide. It's basically the instar stages are determined by their size. And at their fifth instar stage, which is when they're at the maximum size, they hang in a J hang, as you can see here, because it's in a J shape, and they start shedding their skin for the final time and form the chrysalis, which first appears green, but then slowly becomes transparent over time, which you can see here with the translucent shell, and inside you could see the orange and black wing. And here is an empty shell, which is after the monarch emerges from the chrysalis. And lastly, the butterfly stage. Monarchs are usually a butterfly for 2 to 6 weeks or 8 to 9 months, depending on whether they're the breeding or hibernation generation. During this, if they're the breeding generation, which is during the summer, they'll only survive for 2 to 6 weeks. But if they are the hibernation generation, where they hibernate in Mexico, that they're going to survive longer for 8 to 9 months. And here are the 5 instar stages, which is determined by size, and between each instar stage, they shed their skin. Here you could see the skin that this caterpillar shedded to transform from second to third instar, and there's also a head capsule that falls off of their head when they shed, which is pretty cool. And after they shed, they also eat their skin for nutrition. And if you're wondering how to tag data, Monarch Watch sells these tags online. You could buy them in bulk for really cheap. So you could just visit the Monarch Watch tagging program website, which is monarchwatch.org/tagging, and you could buy Monarch tags too, which are like basically tiny stickers that you could place on the monarch wing. Usually the placement should be on the discal cell, which is on the outside of the hind wing. It's also called a mitten like cell because it's mitten shaped. So that's where we usually tag them because it's easy for scientists to spot when they're searching for tagged monarchs in Mexico. And here's an example of what the tagging data sheet looks like. So you need to record the tagging code and then the time and location where it was tagged, whether the monarch is male or female, which I'll cover in the next slide, and other information. And here you could see that this tag is AHCX281 and that corresponds with this row. So to tell between whether or not a monarch is male or female, there's two signs. One is the male monarchs have a dot on one of their veins on the hind wing, which is also called a pouch, while the female monarch butterfly doesn't. And female monarchs also have bigger veins and are generally smaller in size. And lastly, another way you could help support monarch butterflies is to promote awareness and action. Inform yourself and others. We have the power of social media and the internet right now, so there are a lot of resources online for you to stay updated on current environmental issues like the monarch decline. And I've just put a few accounts here that I really like. There's Rewild Long Island and Environment, which covers a lot of current news on climate change and environmental issues. And also Monarchs Matter, where I post a lot of resources on monarchs and information on tagging and our webinars. And you could take action in your community by volunteering for nonprofits and other organizations that are promoting environmental conservation or butterfly conservation. We hold the Raise, Tag, and Release summer program for Monarchs Matter, where we teach high schoolers how to raise, tag, and release monarch butterflies as shown in the name. And we also collect data for the two community science projects I mentioned before, Monarch Watch Tagging Program and MLMP. And we also certify monarch way stations. So if you have a garden or want to establish a monarch way station, which is basically a native plant garden that has milkweed and nectar plants that support monarch butterflies, feel free to reach out to Rewild. Rewild has a community gardens program where they will help you build a garden. And if you want, you could specifically request to build a monarch way station. And Monarchs Matter could also help fund the sign and certification for the monarch way station. And if you want to start a chapter of Monarchs Matter, I'm always open to that. And we're actually starting a chapter in Pakistan right now, which is really exciting, and Nigeria. So if even if you're not sure how to how it works, you could just contact us and let us know that you're interested, and we'll guide you through the process and also provide funding. So now I'll hand it over to Lyla, who will cover Long Island water quality, and then afterwards writing a letter to local representatives.
Okay. Yes, I'm going to be talking about the Long Island water quality. The next slide is going to have a video that I'm going to play first. Oh wait, sorry. Is there volume on the video?
You can't hear it? I could think I could get it a bit louder. Do you hear it now or no?
I think that there still is in volume.
Okay, I could turn on the captions, I think. Maybe that will help.
Yeah.
I think the captions were, yeah, I could replay it because the captions were weren't the auto-generated ones.
So you can go to the next slide. I'll summarize the video. So I know that you guys couldn't hear the volume, but I'll summarize what the video said. So the video is talking about a chemical called 1,4-dioxane, and this chemical is something that definitely contributes to the Long Island water quality problem. It is a clear liquid, so it mixes with water. It has a faint, sweet odor, but the problem is that it doesn't break down in water, and it's correlated with health problems like kidney issues, liver issues, cancer, and that's 1,4-dioxane is the molecular structure on the left. It's red, light gray, and dark gray. And then another chemical that really contributes to this problem is PFAS, which is the molecular structure on the right, the light blue one. And these are also referred to as forever chemicals because they're so persistent in the environment, meaning they take so long to break down. And just like 1,4-dioxane, they're also related and correlated to health problems like developmental issues, cancers, and for both of these chemicals, the problem is that conventional methods like filtration and chlorination do not work with these water treatment methods do not work with these chemicals. So you have to use more unconventional methods like reverse water osmosis. But the problem is that methods like reverse osmosis are more costly, they're more timely, so those are two chemicals that definitely contribute to the problem, and that's what the video was saying. And then the next slide is going to talk about how for both of these chemicals, there are the EPA, so the Environmental Protection Agency, sets standards for these. So for 1,4-dioxane, it's 1 ppb, so 1 parts per billion is the maximum contaminant levels. And then for PFAS, it's 10 parts per trillion. So, what Adrian Espotiso at Citizens Campaign for Long Island writes is that over 1 million people on Long Island drinking PFAS chemicals over the EPA recommended health advisory standard, and that's 1 million too many. We need New York State to take a giant leap forward. So, what she means by that is that even though the EPA is setting these regulations and limits for what the water quality should be, Long Island is not sustaining that level, and our quality is not where it should be. You can move on to the next slide. Thank you. So the other two causes that really do contribute to the poor water quality on Long Island is first off excessive nitrogen. So for one thing that we really use when we're taking care of our lawns, when we're planting, gardening is fertilizers. And fertilizers often contain excessive amounts of nitrogen. And so when we use this, we're releasing too much nitrogen. And what this is leading to are algal blooms. So the image on the left, that's an algal bloom. And what an algal bloom is it's a rapid increase in algae. And the reason why that's a problem is because with algal bloom, what they do is they deplete water of oxygen. So more than humans, they're harming animal species like fish. In the water, when you're depleting water of oxygen, you're creating something called dead zones. And what that means is that there's a lack of oxygen, so many fish species, especially more sensitive ones, cannot survive because there's a lack of oxygen. So that is one problem that is definitely harming our quality of water. It's reducing the amount of oxygen, and it's because humans are using fertilizers more than they should be. And then another thing that really does contribute to this issue, especially on Long Island, is our septic systems. a lot of times our septic systems are poorly maintained. We don't take care of them. And what that means is that in our water, nitrogen is seeping into our groundwater, and when it's not maintained, they're not these septic systems are not filtering pollutants like nitrogen, phosphorus, and then that's getting into our water, and then we're drinking water with those pollutants and with excessive amounts of nitrogen. So those are just two other problems that definitely do contribute to poorer water quality on Long Island, in addition to chemicals. You can move on to the next slide. So, of course, this is definitely going to have an impact. This is going to have an impact on humans. It's going to have an impact on animals. First off, as I touched on before, it's definitely going to it's definitely correlated and impacts humans' health. It leads to cancer, can lead to kidney problems, liver problems, um, fertility issues, developmental issues. And when we're drinking water with such a low quality, it's going to impact us in the long term and in the short term, especially if you're drinking it daily or weekly. And then it's not just going to impact humans, but it's also going to impact animals, which I touched on earlier. Like I said, it is especially going to impact fish species because they are going to be in waters that they cannot survive in due to using nitrogen to more than we should be using, and that goes hand in hand with habit degradation. Um, when we when the water quality is low, and when, for example, when pH levels change and salinity levels change, that is going to impact especially animals because they may not be able to adapt to these changes, especially more sensitive species that um, cannot cannot handle these changes in their environment. It's going to lead to a very it's going to lead to a unfortunate reduction in the amount of fish and other animals, and it's also going to reduce biodiversity. So that's I'm going to use the same example, the dead zones. When these fish start to die in these dead zones, that's going to reduce biodiversity because now instead of 5 different fish species, we're going to have 2. So those are all definitely issues, and it's just going to hurt ecosystems overall, and it's definitely hurting humans, which leads me to my next slide. So right now, there has been an ongoing lawsuit because many individuals on Long Island are filing PFAS water contamination levels. Many people have complained that our PFAS levels are not where they should be, and it's really hurting people. Many individuals are being exposed to toxic water, and then this is leading to cancer, skin conditions, and other life-threatening illnesses. So one example of this is the MacArthur Airport. This airport was having there were groundwater. The groundwater was so contaminated that people started to get sick from it, and there was a lot of life-threatening situations, and that led to this lawsuit because people were so upset that the water quality was impacting their health to this level. So, and you can move on to the next slide, please. So this brings us to an important question. What is being done? We know that the water quality is not where it should be on Long Island, so there should be something that's happening in response to this. And there are events and things that people are doing to show that this is something that needs to change. For example, in Nassau County and Suffolk County have water quality problems, but you could say that Suffolk County's problems are more extreme. So they're bringing up the Prop 2 bill, which is basically they're saying that they need more funding for this, right? They need more money. They're saying that there needs to be more money to create solutions and so that we can work on this problem. And in Nassau County, they're doing the same thing with the Bay Park Convenience Project, also requesting for more funding. And this is important because we need funding to, of course, create solutions and work on this issue. Which leads me to my next slide. So, how can we combat this issue? There are obviously people who are protesting, bringing up things like Prop 2, trying to even form lawsuits showing that they're discontent and that they want something to be done because it is affecting humans' health and it's hurting ecosystems. But everyone should be playing a role in this, especially because it's impacting us. So, one really important way that we can combat this issue is by reaching out to our local representatives. And a really powerful way to do this is through letter writing. Writing is a powerful tool to express that you are um, that you're interested in an issue, that you care about it, which I'll get into more. But before I get into that, another really great way is to get involved with youth organizations and nonprofit organizations in general. So, like Monarchs Matter and also Generation Green is a great way to get involved. At Generation Green, we focus on volunteering, so giving back to your community, taking action. Of course, it's very important to reflect on these issues and talk on it, but it's also important to take action, and that's a big part of Generation Green. We want our youth members and our youth council to take action. So far we've collaborated with Jones Beach to do beach cleanups. We've removed invasive species with North Shore Land Alliance. We're in the process of creating a mentorship program, and we just want to create a space where youth can understand issues further and also can interact with other youth so that an environment, a positive environment can be fostered and that we can work on these issues. So that's one way. And then, as I was saying earlier, I was talking about letter writing, which I'm going to now discuss. So, I'm going to explain how to write a letter because, as I said, I think it's very important. I'm going to just first show the format of writing a letter. I know the image isn't the most clear, so I apologize for that, but I will still explain in detail how to write the letter. And then I will also give examples of representatives that you can reach out to. So it is very important to at the top say it's formal to say the honorable name. So whoever you're writing to. So for example, in my district, Tom Swazi represents me. So I would write the honorable Tom Swazi, and then whatever office, whatever the location of their office is, and I'll give examples on the next slide. You write that at the top, and then you write, dear representative or senator, whoever they are, and then you write their name. And it's really important at the top in the beginning to let them know that you are a part of their district, that they represent you. So saying, for example, I live in North Hempstead and I'm in district, whatever district you're in, district 3. And that way they know that they represent you, and that's why they should be looking at this letter. Because of course the whole point of representatives is to think about your needs and your interests and your wants. So if they know that this is something you care about and that they're representing you, they'll be more inclined to really look at the letter in detail or pay mind to it. So that's important. And then at the first paragraph, you can say what you want, right? Do you want more attention on this issue? Do you want more awareness, a bill in place, or maybe something smaller like a community meeting, or just more attention on this, whatever you think, whatever you want for this issue. So you can talk about any environmental you're passionate and any environmental issue you're passionate about. Cynthia talked about the monarch butterflies. You can talk about that and how maybe you want more attention on raising and tagging butterflies, or you can talk about water quality and how you think that there should be more done for these people who maybe have been hurt by this water quality issue. For example, like I said, this water quality issue has impacted many people and hurt people's health. So maybe more should be done for those people, more attention on those people, and more assistance and support and aid for those people. So whatever you want to talk about, whatever you really feel like you care about, you can talk about that at the top. And I know the letter image says that you can talk about how you want funding, and any other issue that you want. And then the next paragraph, you can talk about your hopes for the future. So, what would you want Long Island to look like? Maybe you envision a Long Island where butterflies aren't endangered, or where the water quality on Long Island doesn't have a high amount of PFAS and 1,4-dioxane. So you can talk about what you want, and then you can just end it with what you hope to get out of this writing this letter, and then sincerely your name and your address. So that's how you write the letter. And then the next slide is just going to have some examples of local representatives. So, for example, I live in District 3, so I would mail the letter to Tom Swazi, who lives in Glen Cove District. And then another example is maybe you live in District 2, and he represents, I don't know if I'm going to say this right, but Pat Chog, and his name is Andrew Garbarino, so you'd mail it to him. So whatever district you're in, we could also help with finding your representative and their location, and you would mail it to them and write it that way. So, Cynthia, I believe we're going to give some time for them to write the letter, right?
Yeah, so Well, first, if anyone has any questions about it, we could address that first, and then we could all take 5 minutes to brainstorm and jot down some ideas. So, does anyone have any questions about writing a letter or the Monarch Butterfly and Long Island water quality presentations? Feel free to pop it in the chat or unmute yourself and speak if you're comfortable with that. Okay, I see everything was good in the chat, so if any questions come up, feel free to type it while we're during our brainstorming section. So now I'll start a 5-minute timer, and you could, if you have a notebook or you want to start a Google Doc, you could start drafting that letter and um, mainly think about who you're going to send this letter to and what issue you're going to advocate for or against. And I could put the template on screen if you want to reference that. And if you're not sure about what to write, feel free to get inspiration from our Long Island water quality presentation from Lyla and Monarch Butterfly presentation because they're really current issues that you could write about. That's why we covered it. Okay, so I'll start a 5-minute timer. And I see we have 2 questions. So Lyle, do you want to cover those 2 questions in the chat first? So the first question is from Catherine. She asks, is there somewhere we can find the current environmental bills that are being considered?
Sorry, I can't see the questions, but I'll just listen to you saying them.
Yeah,
Sorry, can you repeat it one more time?
yeah. Catherine asks, is there somewhere we can find the current environmental bills that are being considered?
So I would suggest definitely a few places. I think doing an online search is normally what I do. So if you want to say you live in District 2 and you want to find out what is being done in District 2, I would look up District 2 bills or District 2 proposals for the water quality issue. I think another really great way, something that I do, is using social media. I know Cynthia's talking about how social media is a great way to find out about different things, spread awareness. And for example, my local representative is Tom Swazi. So I follow him on Instagram, and a lot of times I see what he's doing for the environment. What is he proposing for the environment? Is he proposing any bills? Are there any bills that are already implemented on Long Island? That's what I would suggest for that. And that's a very good question. So,
Yeah, thank you, Lila. Second question is, have you thought about writing to propose new head, the EPA Lee Zeldin?
sorry, can you repeat it one more time?
Yeah. So have you thought about writing to proposed new head, the EPA Lee Zeldin?
Have I thought about it?
Yeah.
Oh, about like new EPA limits and regulations?
Yeah, she's saying that their EPA has a new head named Lee Zeldin.
Um, I haven't exactly thought about that, but I think if you would want to write to the EPA new header, to see what they're doing and to see like why are they setting these certain regulations and limits. I think that's a great idea. I think also, I mean, the EPA is a great way to get in touch to see what is going on with the water quality situation and also why are they like for example the specific number 1 parts per billion. Why are they setting it at that? And what happens when we go above that or when we go below that? So I think that that's a great way to find out more about this issue. I haven't personally done it, but it's definitely something that would be worth your time and energy, in my opinion. So I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, thank you, Lyla, and thank you for the questions.
Thank you.
I don't think there's any more at the moment, so I will start the 5-minute timer now for you guys. You could stay and write if you want, and then after um, the 5 minutes are up, if you're comfortable with sharing, definitely consider sharing with us so we could exchange ideas and inspiration. Okay, so I'm going to start the timer right now. And now it's 46, so we're going to, oh, now it's 47, so we're going to stop at around 52, 7:52 p.m. Eastern Time. Okay, our 5 minutes are up. So, is there anyone who would like to share what their idea is? You could write it in the chat, like 1 or 2 sentences is fine too, or you could unmute and speak.
Yeah, I was thinking of doing a letter on the fires in Brooklyn because recently there was like a lot of wildfires, and I think it's important to bring awareness to it. So I was gonna write a letter to I think her name is Yvette something, and I wanted to know like what her next steps are and stuff like that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing. That sounds really interesting. I didn't hear about that yet. So, it's something I'll definitely look into too now that you're talking about it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
I wanted to write a letter on like what we talked about today, but specifically the water quality. I forgot which specific chemical you mentioned, but like I wanted to write a letter to ask him to support the funding of reverse osmosis because I remember you said that it was like a more costly way of filtration than other types. So this letter would kind of be to like push him to be like, okay, like separate funds to help and support this process so that we can have better water in New York to reduce like the bad health
Yeah, I think that's a really
effects.
good idea. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Sabrina, for sharing.
Yeah, I had an idea. Mine was gonna be about like how there's a lot of trash on the streets in New York City, and like I was gonna talk about like address that issue and like maybe recycling too. I know there's like a big issue with recycling.
Yeah, I agree. I heard that a lot of schools, even though you might have recycling bins in your school, the things in the recycling bin aren't actually recycled and they're just thrown out with the regular trash too.
Actually, our school took out like my school took out recycling bins, so there's no more recycling bins in my school. So
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, maybe you could advocate for like recycling bins in your school,
Yeah, maybe.
even though it's like,
Yeah, like write a letter to a superintendent or someone in your school would be also a good idea. So thanks for sharing.
is there anyone else who would like to share? If not, thank you for joining. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or Lyla. We will both put our emails in the chat if you want to contact us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Yeah. Thank you
this
guys.
recording will also be posted on YouTube, on Real Wilds and Monarchs Matters YouTube. So look out for that. Our YouTube is just, I could also put the link to
Yeah, I just
YouTube.
put the Generation Green Instagram and the email and the account if anyone wants to follow.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for joining. It was nice hearing all of your responses.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Great work, ladies.
Thank you.